Merry Christmas!
Hi, this is Chris from Leicester Till I Die. Thank you for watching and listening. Have a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
This is your host, Chris.
No! God, please, no! No!
I know, I'm sorry, but he's cheap and available.
How rude!
Oh, very rude. Good evening. How the devil are you? Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye. Hello! Wherever you are in the world, one of those will apply to you. This is LTID TV from Leicester Till I Die. Thank you for joining us. It's the weekend review show. Well, what a week. Last time we did this, we were feeling absolutely miserable having just watched the performance against Brentford, but hopeful that something might change with Rude. Well, they say a week is a long time in politics. It's bloody ages in football. It has all changed. We can sit here now, I think, with a smile on our face. We'll see what my co-host Tom thinks in a minute when we bring him in. But thank you for coming and thank you for joining us. Please add your comments in. Try and keep up with the game. So if we are talking maybe about one game, try not to comment about one that we talked about 10 minutes before. It just all gets very confusing. And at my age, I'm very easily confused. And don't forget, hit that like button. Share it as well. And obviously, if you would be so kind, subscribe. It all helps the channel. It is the weekend review show. Review show. You know, it's been a long day. I have been late twice today, once for Tom and once for, I was doing a radio show earlier, an interview for the radio show, and I was late for my for Francis Rossi of Status Quo. I came in and this was all set up as Leicester Till I Die. I should have set it up ready as Surrey Hills Radio, and he came in and I had to explain what was going on. Bless him. It was about an hour I spoke to him. I'm going to cut out all the rude bits and the swearing, so I should have about 10 minutes left at the end. But it is the weekend roundup. Thanks very much for joining us. Let's get Tom in. Tom, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chris. Nice to hear you're trying to recruit members of Status Quo to be Leicester fans. I like to hear that.
Well, yes. I mean, he's got 8 kids, most of whom follow different teams, none of which are Leicester. I know. I just say it was over 2 wives, so the pain was spread.
And the salary of a rock star.
Exactly. But I must have done about 20 of these pop stars now, music people, and not one of them has been on time. But I came in, and there he was sat playing on his guitar. Very surreal. Very surreal.
How brilliant.
But no, he was a gentleman. He was a gentleman. And they do say never talk to your hero, or never meet your heroes, don't they?
Yeah.
So I've just spent an hour talking to mine, so I guess I'm buggered, really, because I absolutely love Status Quo.
Yeah, but how did you find it, Chris, from that perspective, just quickly before we get into it? I mean, that must be quite an interesting experience that most people haven't had in their lives.
It's weird, because I've done it with, like, Leicester players.
Yeah.
I've watched Leicester players out on the pitch, like, you know, Walshy, tags, and Stan Collymore, and managers like Brian Little, and I get to speak to them, and that's very surreal. But the problem I've got is that I go out and say to everybody, like all my kids and family, like, "Oh, I'm going to be interviewing Status Quo," and they'll go, "Who?"
Well, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting because it's all like bite-sized moments of history, isn't it? But
It is, yes. Let me just say, my daughters are 25, and they hadn't heard of Debbie Harry, and you're getting old, So, and trying to explain Marty Wilde to them, well, I was just peeing in the wind, to be honest with you.
They've got their Drakes or their M&Ms for all these people, my friend. So it's a similar principle, isn't it?
I did, and I must admit, I don't like those chocolates.
No, me neither. Why you name yourself after a packet of sweets, I don't know. But
Exactly.
That's
move
Detroit,
on,
Michigan for you.
At least with my jokes the level that I'm starting at already.
At least with my jokes you might be offended, but I will try and get my way out of it.
Nate is in. Hi, Nate. How the devil are you? So welcome along. Good evening to you as well. Right, so we've missed a week's worth of games because obviously we had midweek games, but we haven't got any time to sort of do extra shows. But a week ago, we were bloody miserable, weren't we?
Yeah, it wasn't looking very good, was it? The only hope we had was that great light in the north that we were going to follow, which is Ruud van Nistelrooy. And now we get a week down the line. We've got 4 points in the bag from 2 games, a win and a draw. And it's looking a lot more optimistic. So there's that song, What a Difference a Day Makes. In Leicester's case, a week's made a massive difference for us, hasn't it?
I hope I'm not going to upset anybody who's religious, because I wrote it's my turn to do the blog for the BBC, so do check it out tomorrow, everybody. bbc.co.uk/LCFC. And I did wrote because it was his 8th day in charge yesterday, so the 8th day, Ruud didn't try and have a rest, he tried to raise the dead again. So we'll see. Thankfully, at the other end, it was reviewed by there's one Leicester fan in the group of BBC people that coordinate it all, and I got her this week, so I think I should get it passed.
Well, religion's meant to be quite a compassionate thing. I feel it's more about faith than punishment. So hopefully, the faith will be meant to be in good intent.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers
so,
crossed.
Yeah, we've only got 8 matches to go through today because obviously West Ham and Wolves are in El Sacchio this evening, so that will be interesting. That I think I'm not sure what time that kicks off. Actually,
I believe it's 8 o'clock. I've just noticed my neighbours are banging on the wall trying to knock something up as well, Chris. I hope you're not hearing any of that. But if you are, I apologise, everyone.
No, we can't. I can't hear a thing. And I'm so glad you added on the wall at the end of that.
Yeah. I don't think it's anything beyond putting up a shelf, but still there's something going on.
Well, I can't hear a thing, so don't worry. So yeah, it's the El Sacchio tonight at 8 o'clock. We might touch on that towards the end of the show. And obviously Liverpool and Everton match was cancelled because of Storm Dara. Never let it be said that the Scousers are, pleased to have some excuse not to work, but I'm joking, any Scousers. Those are the 3 main games we're going to be looking at. Leicester Brighton will be the main one. Villa Southampton, and our fan cam this week, we're taking it down to 1. It's a mate of mine, actually. Colin is a Bournemouth fan, and they did us a favour, but my God, they left it late. But
They did.
They did. But we're also going to be looking at the news. So let's just have a look. I've got these in the wrong way around, but there we go. David Coote's been sacked. Who knew?
Yeah, it's been a big thing today, hasn't it? And it's funny because my first reaction was it's obviously the right decision. But my first feeling, Chris, I'm quite glad you've brought this up, is one of a bit of empathy for the man, because he's made a pretty hideous mistake and he's done it in front of the entire world. He's not handled it particularly well, and now he's going to be dealing with the fact he's lost his career. So I hope for him, beyond all the banter he's going to get and possibly a lot of trolls, that he's okay, because it's a very heavy decision today. But yeah, ultimately, you've got to hold a certain standard, haven't you? And in any sport, if you're in a position of authority or in any position of authority, these things simply can't happen, and you have to be willing to own that before you get into these messes. So it was the right decision, but once again, it is a double-edged thing for me, this, because ultimately, for a man that's viewed as a picture and just a guy chatting a few words which are probably out of context and also probably very incorrect in hindsight when you had a few drinks or whatever else he was up to.
Whatever else he was up to, very, very, very nasty cunt.
Well, there's a lot of us in life have never been perfect. I've been at karaoke bars a few times with too many drinks, and before you know it, I'm singing Rammstein in a very, very dark German accent, which is quite controversial. So,
Yes.
my point is that he's still a human being at the end of it.
Yes.
So I hope people will lay off him now and give him some time to recover and reform his life.
I think the PGMOL were in a difficult position. I don't think they had any other alternative but to sack him.
Agreed.
Because when you come to think the punishment they hand out or is handed out to managers and players if they criticise referees, and it doesn't go anywhere near what obviously he was saying under whatever influence he was. I think he needs to choose his friends better, definitely.
100%.
But the PGMOL are still offering him, the help that he needs, which is good. To see. So he'll get that. And there's nothing to say that he couldn't go over to whether it's work in the Saudi league or somewhere. I mean, I know UEFA are talking about banning him as well because he was a UEFA referee.
Yeah.
If he wasn't a UEFA referee, he may have been able to go to a European country. I think that's out the window. But look, South America, North America, Saudi Arabia will probably welcome him with open arms,
Well, life's a funny thing, Chris, because sometimes bad things happen to people, irrelevant if they're good or bad, but sometimes they're actually just redirections. So maybe actually he'll go on now to do something even better than what he's doing, and he'll have a happier life. Which I mean, maybe that's me reaching for positives in the cesspool when it's full of. But I think in some ways that's kind of the challenge, isn't it?
It is, and at the end of the day, like you say, what talking of religion, what's the saying that he who is without sin cast the first stone?
Exactly.
My God, I did well to remember that, didn't I?
You did very well for two people who probably stood separate in the church apart from the King Power for a long time, but
you didn't just put my Bible away. Antonio, we wish him all the best. He's obviously out of today's game. Very lucky, and as somebody who's written his car off in an accident and walked away from it, sometimes God up there, we're back to religion again, is looking after you. And it's good to see this. He's had surgery. I don't know if he's going to end his career, though.
Well, the first news is it's looking like it could be a year at least, which is normally a pretty bad sign about how bad the injury is going to be. But ultimately, he's a very lucky man because you see the pictures from the accident. The post from West Ham when it happened with the faded badge and a black light kind of worried people, I think, quite a lot because they must have just seen and heard the news we all did, which was there's a nasty accident. You see a mangled sports car, which looks like one side of it's completely caved in. And you fear the worst, understandably, especially when, unfortunately, he's had history when he's parked his car dressed as a snowman as someone's garden shed before, which is me making light of a very serious situation, possibly at the wrong time. But you've got to laugh at yourself sometimes a little bit.
You do, no, you do definitely.
And I'm just glad. The main thing is he's still here on this earth, and hopefully he'll have a full recovery, and he'll be a loss to West Ham as well, though, because I've liked him as a player for his attitude. I'd have taken him at Leicester when he was available on the free. I said that. Yeah,
and we will never. I know he's a West Ham player, etc., but we do wish him all the best and a speedy recovery, and hopefully he can still play football in some form at the end of it, or be involved in football in another way. This is sounding like I'm talking about Leicester. Liverpool have got three players, Salah, Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold. And let's be honest with you, three of their top first-team players, names that would go straight onto the team sheet, are all, at the moment, out of contract in the summer.
Yeah. Which means they could be talked about European clubs in January.
Yes.
Carry on.
Exactly. No, exactly. But positive, they've got positive news there. I know Doug, who's a friend, who's a Liverpool fan, is happy that things, I think more with Salah, it looks like he's set to sign a 2-year extension. But I don't think we're judging people from walking out because Saudi Arabia is there with its pots of gold and what have you. But it's hard to turn down, isn't it?
Well, it is, and but like you say, it's an interesting scenario, Chris, because how did Liverpool kind of end up in this position? That's kind of a big question. Of all the Klopp departure and the slot coming in to replace him, they somehow let a few contracts keep sliding towards the door, which is quite surprising. I would have thought players like Trent, in particular, who've still got years on their game to go, would have been signed up maybe a year before this even happened. So it's quite surprising. I think a lot of it is down to obviously the Saudi league influence. You're correct. The effect of 500 million or 500,000, a week for a base salary for a player like an Ivan Toney is going to turn any player's head in the European game, especially like you say when they're Mo Salah and they're getting older. So for Liverpool to challenge that when they've got a wage structure that will probably only go as high as I can imagine, as a guess, I don't know, 200,000 a week, maybe at most 150. They don't seem to be reckless with money, Liverpool, like say Real Madrid can be or PSG. I think that is an interesting challenge for them. But the nice thing about this is it kind of reminds me a bit of Jamie Vardy, because if Mo Salah was all about money, I think he could have just easily just ignored Liverpool and walked into £500,000 a week somewhere else.
Yes.
But by all accounts, if it's an extension, that means he's getting paid the same.
Yeah. Yes.
Which I think suits Liverpool as well and their interests at the same time.
Oh, no, definitely. It does. Like I say, I don't judge players for wanting to go to Saudi Arabia or anywhere like that. Because at the end of the day, look at Antonio, we've just talked about. It can be a very short career, and things can happen to make that career even shorter. So, good luck to Liverpool. There are three players that I'd all want to re-sign.
The other part of it is, Chris, if we looked at Man City this weekend, I know we're going to get to this, but I was going to briefly mention Kyle Walker as someone who's getting on a bit now, and they've extended. Virgil van Dijk would be the player I'd look at and go, he's not as quick as he was. He's still earning a lot of money. When do you make that decision? Maybe that's why it's taken Liverpool this long. When do you make that decision? Is this player done? Do we need to replace? Which I'll question with Man City more when we get to it. But anyway, you see my thought process.
It's a good point, but I think you've also got to say, although the legs aren't as active, the brain is.
Jamie Vardy.
Look at when we had Tony Cotte. He famously said he was like running in sand, but he had Emil Heskey to do the running, and Emil Heskey would do all the running and pop the ball in, and all he had to do was work out the best position to play in, and your brain's still reasonably quick. It's all going a bit, Man United, they're the club that just keep on giving, really, aren't they? Let's be honest. They pay anywhere up to £3 million to get Dan Ashworth out of Newcastle as his sporting director. Comes in and is there less than 5 months. I don't know. I think he didn't quite. I think he lasted longer than Liz Truss in that position. But they've parted because they've agreed to part company, haven't they?
Yes, they have. Yes, it's interesting because the Liz Truss comparison is quite interesting because I'm pretty sure Dan Ashworth probably got a better payoff, which is the modern quite possibly. But yeah, it's interesting because when a new manager comes in, there was talk about this with Ruud van Nistelrooy, Leicester as well. It's like who does he want as a director of football? Who does he want as a head of recruitment? A lot of these managers and head coaches now do think about this, especially at the elite level when they get to the top of the game, right? So I can imagine it's partly to do with that, and it's possibly partly to do with certain players we are seeing for Manchester United who now, when Amorim's having a look at them, is saying they're not going to be up to scratch and they've probably cost a lot of money. So this is the nature of the beast. As far as if I was Dan Ashworth, Christmas is off, I've been paid X amount of money, he'll no doubt be picked up by someone else.
Indeed.
Because he's had a successful career. So, it's more, once again, this is Manchester United, and Manchester United are very good at deflecting a lot of blame and appropriation to people within the group. They don't seem to do a lot about culture. That's where Amorim's got to make the difference. Culture, not tactics.
Last question before we move on to the games. Should the sporting director be the choice of the manager or the choice of the chairman stroke owner?
And that is a very difficult question to answer, and I think it would depend on the club in particular. I would imagine a structure, the bigger club you are, the more it depends on the CEOs and ownership, would be more sensible. The smaller club you are, I think you've got a bit more wiggle room, because
Yeah.
if you were to attract, say you were Southampton, but you were to attract, say, Nagelsmann, who was once in charge of Bayern, or, and he wanted to bring in a technical director, then it's more of an interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because then you can probably justify it. So yeah, I think it's a 50-50 shot depending on the size of the club. But I suggest to Manchester United that if things aren't going right in the first place, you perhaps don't want to double down on things that aren't going right. You want to double down on changing.
Yeah, because obviously our sporting director is Mr. Rudkin, who is
Yes.
very much entrenched in his position because Top trusts him, and like I say, I think he gets the blame for everything, whether it's his fault or not,
Yeah.
Yes. I'm just wondering why I've got. There we go. I've got the StreamYard logo up then for some reason. So today's games. Here we go. So we're going to start off with Leicester Brighton, which will be fun this week, I'm glad to say. You were going to be covering Everton Liverpool for us, as the Merseyside derby, the last one. We will talk about that briefly at the end, but of course that was cancelled. So you did fill in with Villa Southampton.
Yeah.
And then Ipswich playing Bournemouth, and we tried to include the fan cam as a match that has some effect on Leicester. And obviously, at one point, Ipswich were only a point behind us. They were winning, we were losing. It was all to play for.
It was a huge 5 minutes in the course of what is a 38-game season.
Yeah, exactly. And it could make all the difference at the end, of course. But let's go to the first game. Leicester City 2, Brighton and Hove Albion 2. Jamie Vardy inspires stunning late comeback to secure a draw against the Seagulls, said. And these are all Sky Sports quotes, by the way. I can't take any credit. Look, we spoke at length after the match on the watch along on the post match section. At 2-0, I wouldn't have been despondent. Obviously, I'd be disappointed because we would have lost. But I thought the performance. There's a lot still to do, and it's good that Van Nistelrooy can see that, and he's not saying, suddenly everything in the garden is rosy. But the performance at losing 2-0 was still one of the better ones this season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I said that to you, in the post-match. I said it was funny. I felt remarkably relaxed for being 2-0 down. It didn't feel to me like it was the end of the world because the energy was just kind of, it was all right. It was there. It's funny Joe mentioned your shirt, because my first thought, Chris, was, are you wearing the TFC home shirt this week, which is more of a red colour after last week? But I was like, no, it's a classic.
Right. No. To be honest with you, I just grabbed something to be different. And,
hoodie. So.
no matter what colour shirt they go for as the away, because obviously the home's always blue. And, if it's white, well, that's Leeds United.
Yeah.
If it's if it's green, it's Norwich City. There's always somebody we're going to know. If it's I can't have red, that's Nottingham Forest. I know Joe's probably only joking, or she might not be. But it doesn't bother me. I don't look at this and think, well, this is a Nottingham Forest. I'm doing it because, it means I don't have to wear blue for once, and I'm still wearing the badge and still supporting the club by buying it.
I was going to joke, my beard looks like that Foss Gold colour they apparently own. Remember they did that Foss Gold kit? But
yes.
It's kind of like, it's like a brown gold, which kind of looks a bit...
I have that one, I think, somewhere.
I have the reverse one, yeah.
Yes,
my beard kind of looks like that. But anyway, we're getting distracted by the colour of my beard, which is weird.
But
that's not what they tuned in for. Carry on.
I mean, Joe said there, Vardy helped, but Bobby De Cova-Reid was the saviour. Well, he was, because he scored the goal. So, I mean, if you'd been on the pitch and put the ball in, you'd have been the saviour. But fair play to him, because there was a lot of times during that game when we broke away, but there was nobody supporting the player that had broken away. So the fact that in fairness to him, he had, I think, got the ball in the first instance, passed it to Mavididi, played it through. So fair play to De Cova-Reid, as I said at the time. But at least in that moment, we had players up supporting Vardy.
That is true, yeah. And the thing is, Chris, is that the main complaint about Cooper was kind of we were playing like quite a tight defensive game and we were still losing and not really doing enough. You know, we were nicking things. We weren't really in it in a wholesome way. I think the interesting thing is you look at the West Ham game where we conceded 30 shots. West Ham scored had the most shots they had in Premier League history in the game against us, which they happened to lose, which is remarkable. And I think if anything, that shows you why there probably wasn't that full blown commitment to a full attacking press game, because ultimately we can't be shipping those goals either. So the irony of bringing Rude in is we're kind of trying to solidify the Cooper problem first and the Cooper idea and make it better before we carry on. But I agree with you. At the end of the game, the nice thing was, and I hinted at this with Root 5's coming on as well, I just felt he was someone who's a bit more mobile than Yannick. He can get forward with the ball. We need now to get forward because we're in this game. And that's exactly what we did. So we had a strategy. We excelled it really well. And the nice thing was the players the entire way through the game were committed to it. And that's what you want to see.
Yes. And look, you know, this I don't like XG, to be honest with you, because I don't think it tells you anything.
It's rubbish.
Yes, they had 31 shots. Only 10 of those are on target. So only a third of them were on target. 1/3 of them were probably ending up on the space station. You know, and 11 of them were blocked. So, you know, I'm sorry, it means sweet FA come the end of the day. But
I look at it this way, Chris. If they complain about that, I go, well, you should have taken your chances. I mean, if you're hiding behind XG, that shows me you're not good enough at converting.
Yeah, I mean, I had a bit of banter with a West Ham fan afterwards, and said like, you know, and he said, well, look at all on another day we'd have scored 10. I said, but you didn't. It's as simple as that.
So I'd be more annoyed that I lost because we didn't take our chances.
Exactly. But look, Brighton, when they were 1-0 up, they were actually sat 5th in the table. Now, you know, the week before we'd played West Ham, Rude had only been in charge for 2 days. We'd got West Ham, who were, let's be honest with you, 14th in the league, in utter turmoil. You know, they've got a manager that's fighting with his players. You know, you've got a chairman that all the fans hate. They've got a manager as well that not only does he fight with his players, he doesn't know what he's doing, according to their fans.
Yeah.
Against Brighton, who are challenging for Europe again. They brought a new manager in at the start of the season. He seems to kind of know his stuff, although I have noticed 1 or 2 Brighton fans saying, you know, they're starting to question him. How soon we change us fickle. That's the word. Fickle we are, football fans. But look, that team is higher than Tottenham, Newcastle, and Manchester United, and we came back from 2-0 down. We were asked a question, weren't we? Was that comeback better or the Southampton one? And I think we all went. I mean, I know Kate went for Southampton because we won that, but that against that team to me was more impressive.
Yeah, and I agreed with that. And like I said at the time, my reasoning for it was because I felt we were already completely spent from the work we put into the game, but we found that extra edge. And I think that is so key to anything you do in life, especially in sports, because ultimately that will drive you over the line. The Southampton game, you know, it's an interesting comparison because we did win this game, but how many of those goals did Southampton just give to us like they have done every other week? How much work did we actually have to really, like you say, put into it to achieve that result? I don't think it was as much as Brighton, because Brighton was so good on the counter. Mads had to pull some good saves out.
Yes,
and Ndidi headed one off the line in the first half from a corner, which was a missed as a moment, but Ndidi actually saved us in that moment. And then you think, well, in the context of that, this is a much more encouraging point. And the context of points are relevant to the time they're taken, aren't they? I said about Ipswich, the point we gained there is either going to be a point that bites us or a point that we've earned in a good way, but we don't know yet.
Yes. And as well, I forgot what I was going to say now. I was just looking at a message.
Oh, yeah, I was just going free-flowing, mate. I do
No,
this.
no, not your fault. No, I was looking at a message had just come through, and it's thrown me. Oh, yes, that's what I was going to say was, this point won't be the decisive factor as to whether we stay up or go down. The point we earned against Ipswich will be, because they're down there with us.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the point. And that's what made us make this change, no doubt, because we were looking at the teams around us and going, they're starting to pick up more points than we were doing. We were keeping them at arm's length enough under Cooper, but we still weren't going to achieve anything or note against any team in the top 10.
No,
We were going to
no.
go lose 4-2 to Arsenal. And it would, and they see the 2 goals. And it's like, well, you scored 2 goals. But in that game, it's the worst I've seen Leicester play in ages.
Yes.
We weren't deserving of 2 goals in that game. We just have to luck our way to it.
You probably thought that until you saw us play Brentford, though.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that really was just kind of like, oh yeah, this is not in a good spot at all, is it? But doesn't that show you an interesting discipline in Leicester fans? I think in particular, I think we can give ourselves a lot of credit here because the press like to jump on Leicester fans when we have something to say because we normally are controversial or something else. I would suggest to the press we've got a very good read on our football club and a very good read on football in general because we've experienced the highs and lows of all of it.
Yes. Yes.
So we know what we're seeing is good, and we know if what we're seeing is bad. We supported Pearson; we were bottom of the Premier League, but we knew what we were seeing was good. We didn't support Cooper because we know ultimately what we're seeing is bad.
Yes.
And that is why we're here. So ultimately, we're now seeing good, and that is the main step forward from this weekend, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, we are now subject to what Wolves do tonight. Well, we won't be. We can't drop down at all.
No.
Wolves could get 12 points, but that would still be 2 behind us. We are 5 points off the bottom 3 at the moment. And like you say, that's the important thing. And look, we're not going to qualify for Europe. Rude's not going to suddenly make this team into primetime Barcelona, but he's making me feel a lot more confident about finishing 17th.
Yeah, exactly. He's making me feel confident in a way of where you don't want to run before you can walk. But I'm thinking if we could stay up this year and give him a couple of transfer windows, next year we could be a Bournemouth.
Yes.
I mean, and that's the scary thing about a week's difference, isn't it? When you just see the basic principles being put into a football club from a new manager, and you go, "I agree with that principle," because that principle is what Leicester City has been founded on, and our success has been founded on hard work, playing honest, and all these things. And that's great, isn't it, Chris? And that's what we want.
Indeed. I was just going to read you. This was the reply I got to my blog for the BBC. The lady at the My Football Team department.
Yeah.
Hi, Chris. I hope you're keeping well. Thank you so much for sending over your column for this week. I really enjoyed reading your thoughts. It was a brilliant comeback, wasn't it? I didn't think we would get much from the game, but that Fox's never quit attitude was definitely there. 2-2 for Vardy as well. Your piece will be on the page tomorrow afternoon, as per usual. Do keep an eye out for it. It's true. And I did say that in my blog. She's actually pitched it off me. But, Foxes never quit. They don't now. All right, it's a play on the, they think it's all over. But I do that's back for me.
And that's the most important thing, Chris. I mean, I'm sorry, irrelevant of results, irrelevant of titles, irrelevant of trophies. Football at its core is a game you go watch every Saturday with your family and your friends, and you want to see your football club representing everything about you. And that is what Leicester City is and what it always has been. That's what got me into Leicester City, no doubt, when I was a young kid. I mean, I was lucky that it was the Martin O'Neill era, and all of a sudden we started reaching for the stars when we were told we could barely hit the sky, and and stuff like that, the magic of it, and you feel it, and it's part of you as much as it's a part of them. So I think we're very lucky. I feel very lucky to be a Leicester fan and born a Leicester fan, because I don't feel like I chose it. I feel it was chosen for me, oddly. That sounds a bit bizarre, because there's no other football club that'll make me kick off as much as this lot do.
Well, if you supported another club, it might do,
Well, the least in Toronto, but that's my Toronto vibe, and I love Toronto in the same way. So that's different, But there we go.
But there we go. So 2-2. We're happy with the point, I think. I thought at 2-0 it was all over. It wasn't. I think the corner could have been left to play out, but they decided that he wasn't going to. But look, they could have broken away and scored at the other end. So, no, I'm very happy with a point against a team that is currently sat in 7th place. Really,
there's a team that could beat us 4-1, so it's an upgrade from Brentford.
Let's be honest with you. Less than 2 seasons ago, they beat us 5-2.
Absolutely, they've scored 4 at the King Power before in the Championship. Remember, we got promoted. They beat us in the last day. Yeah,
indeed. I I don't know whether they spelled Jean wrong or that is how he spells Jean Duran.
That's correct.
Um,
It is JH, yeah.
It is JH, but I
Yeah.
don't really know. But look, you were going to cover, like we said earlier, Everton versus Liverpool. That was blown off, of course, because of the win, no pun intended. And so obviously I went for this because Southampton obviously are down there with us. And, it's a team that I think it was a big game, like Everton, Liverpool, great, but Everton are there with us as well. But I haven't seen anything from this game at all. So what was it like? I mean, Southampton holding Villa to a 1-0. Did they play well, which they had been doing in a lot of games, but not coming out with anything?
Yeah, honestly, Chris, you haven't missed anything new from Southampton. It's exactly the same story they tell every week. They turn up, they play attacking football, they play good football, and then they give away daft goals. It's a broken record, Southampton's plight now, and every week I see a team out there, and once again, I see a team that is believing what their manager's trying to do, because they should have scored. I think the problem is the manager's system, similar way to what we said about Burnley every week last year with Company. He hasn't got the players to play this system, and they're trying so hard, but they're making individual errors under pressure because that left wing back isn't Marcelo from Real Madrid or prime Marcelo.
Yes,
and this is a big problem for us. For Southampton, and the problem they've got now is we said about these 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks, and how we made a change. These 2 weeks have now made them have an 8-point gap. And then all of a sudden you're really deep in sinking sand here, and to make a change now and change the system you've got, especially when it's quite expansive with the manager they've got, it's going to be incredibly difficult. They've kind of committed to this now, but they are still capable of winning back to back, I think, if they could stop conceding these daft things.
Well, this is it. They've scored 11, but they've conceded 31. So they are currently on minus 20.
And I think 20 of those goals have been inside their own area. They've been passing the ball around.
Well, exactly. And I said this about Ruud when he took over. I said, will he impose a system and go, this is the system I play, and I'm going to pick the players that fit into that system? Or is he going to say, you're the best players, this is the system that works for you, and until things change, and I've got me feeling that's what we're going to do, is we're going to play you. And there's no point insisting on a system if you haven't got the players to play that system.
No, and actually, this is a good caveat as to not to go too back to Leicester too much here, but quickly, something that hasn't been talked about Ruud's appointment that's probably more important than just talking about it now. But the good thing about Ruud is that a lot of his experience comes from working with teams he has to work with, because he's worked with under 21s, he's worked with youth academies. He's not really been in a position to go out there and buy players, so he's always, like you say, had to build a system to make a very positive result and emphasize the best quality of what he's got. So when you consider that and you bring him into Leicester City, where we've challenged that and gone, we think this player indeed he shouldn't be an attacking midfielder, and we're right. It puts him back as a ball-winning midfielder. So actually, that's another bonus of us hiring Ruud. And actually, like you say, if I can convert that to Southampton now, perhaps that's something they've got to consider, because I think they've got good personnel there, Chris. I think they've got more experienced personnel than Ipswich. But the system they are deploying right now isn't achieving as much of a positive result as an Ipswich, and that's a problem.
Like you say, 8 points from safety, 9 points behind ourselves. Look, without wanting to curse it, which I probably am going to, Leicester, I think, are only going to get better. Hopefully, yes.
I cursed every team this last week, so I'm trying to say very little this week.
I just think they're doomed. How long can you see Russell Martin staying there?
Well, the thing is, Chris, the players, to me, on face value, seem to be believing in it. So I'm leaning still more towards a shocking Pearson-like comeback. If it's enough to stay up, I don't know. No. But I still look at them and go, if they can have just a game where they don't give away a daft goal, they might win that, and then they might win 2. And from there, you don't know. In fact, if there was to be one surprise in the new year around Christmas time, I still, in spite of this, could see Southampton winning back-to-back games out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden, we're all going, oh, hello, what's going on here? And I kind of think they've got to commit to it now. They've got to commit to Russell Martin, and they've got to go in January and go, we need better players.
Yes. Interestingly, you joined us on the prediction show last week.
Yes. It was a great show from a chaos and a comedy perspective. Not so great from actual Premier League predictions.
No, not for any of us, in fairness. You were slightly worse than... Well, Brad only got 2, so I'll let people do the maths on that one. But I remember you saying, was it that this might be controversial, but you said, I'm going to go for a Southampton win.
Yes, and actually, Chris, if you watch the game...
Here we go. Hang on.
I've got to do it. I'm digging. I've written it down here. I've got a whole page of notes on this game, and the first 25 minutes was me justifying my decision because Southampton were all over Aston Villa. And actually, like, we haven't talked about Villa, but it's a good caveat to move into that. Aston Villa is still quite stagnant because really, like, they got the 1-0. The goalkeeper's positioning for Southampton for their goal. John Duran's not going to have an easier goal to score. The goalkeeper came out and tried to tackle him rather than staying in his net. It was a bad decision. And there was talk from other people in other videos this week on the channel about Joe Lumley, the Southampton keeper, and it wasn't a wise decision. And outside of that, Southampton would have got a point because they didn't really do very much. Honestly, again, they kind of look a bit stagnant to me.
I mean, look, they're still 6, so it isn't sort of panic stations. I mean, I'm trying to think where were they the 5th last season, I think, or 4th. No, they were 4th because we got into the Champions League. Yeah, so they're down in 6, so it isn't panic stations. But they have got that Champions League commitment now, which almost makes a season like a championship season because you have that many extra games and midweek games. And to still be in 6th place, like the 25 points, they're only 4 points off Arsenal. But they have had recently some questionable performances. They've lost 2 in the last 5. The thing I get with Villa, though, is they've scored 23 goals, but they've conceded 23 goals. And you've got to question, when you look at Liverpool, 11, Chelsea 18, Arsenal 15. They need to tighten up at the back, I would imagine.
Yeah, that is very important because actually, if anything is sliding from Villa, it isn't really their goal scoring; it's their defending. Their defending is getting sloppier. It's getting a little bit like they're lacking that bit of work rate. They're good at scoring from corners. They seem to be starting to drive a bit like we did under Brendan. Remember when we were under Brendan, we started losing that ability to be able to play in behind people's defence.
Yes,
Villa have kind of lost that a bit. They had a lot of counter attacks against Southampton, as you can imagine in this game. And there'll be 4 against 2 or 4 against 3 with Watkins and whoever, and they couldn't make it work. It was kind of like so there's something not quite right there. Like, they need a little bit of freshening up, like I said last week. But ultimately, Chris, the reason they come in the top 4 or in the top 6 this year will be because they win games like this 1-0. So maybe I'm being too critical.
Yeah. Tommy's in. Hi, he's a Forest fan. He's saying they'll beat Villa on Saturday. We're on game number 2, Tommy. You are game number 5 that we're going to be talking about. So if you stay with us, you'll hear what we think about your performance. I say for me, unless we see a Great Escape type of turnaround, I think Southampton, unfortunately, are doomed. Whether it would pay them to go down and come back up again, only time will tell. Right, the next game, Ipswich against Bournemouth. And it was interesting because Craig from Bournemouth, Paddy, he was in the watch along. In fact, somebody said, for God's sake, this is a Leicester watch along, not a Bournemouth one. He was giving us so many updates on Bournemouth performance, not scoring. He didn't give us any spoilers on the score because, bless him, he was sat there for 5 minutes until I noticed that he equalised.
Well, you were feeding him beers at 10 o'clock in the morning on the live stream, so I can imagine he was getting a bit carried away.
I fade in. I don't remember him putting up much of a fight.
No, but there was some gentle persuasion of it's 5 o'clock somewhere from someone wearing red in this picture right now.
He's
Me
an
and you'd be
adult.
dangerous.
He's an adult. He's nearly 40. I wasn't having his hand up his back. But anyway.
If me and you did a live show in the pub, mate, it would last for 7 hours. It would never end.
Oh, God. Michael's just come in. Hi, Michael. How you doing? I've got another... I'm living down here. I've got a lot of friends that are Bournemouth fans. And I've got to say, this guy, I used to work with him. He's a good mate. It's Colin. Now, his channel is linked in the chat. It's Colin and Big Al's Bournemouth channel or something like that. But the link is in the description below. He has not been going very long, so go out there, guys, and give him your support and subscribe. But he did this for us straight after the game.
Hello, this is Colin from Colin and Big Tails AFCB Matchday Vlogs. Me and my old man record Bournemouth AFC Bournemouth Matchday Vlogs, home and away. So today I've actually just got back from Portman Road and Ipswich, just sat down following another late comeback from the Cherries. Final score, Ipswich 1, Bournemouth 2. We've done it again, another late comeback. We did it against Everton, we did it against Villa, now we've done it against Ipswich. It's an interesting one, this game, because for 80 minutes I thought we were pretty poor compared to our usual high standards. I think Ipswich made it very difficult for us. I've got a lot of time for Ipswich. I've seen us play Leicester, I've seen us play Southampton, and now Ipswich of the three promoted sides from last season, and Ipswich were easily the best team out of the three. They made it very difficult for us. They played some really nice football as well, and they were deservedly 1-0 up after about 20 minutes today. We just didn't get going in the first half today. We struggled to string passes together. We grew into the game a little bit as the game went on, but something that's been we've won the past few games, but our Achilles heel is that our finishing's just been quite poor over the past few games. We beat Spurs on Thursday, but we should have won by more. We had so many chances in that game, and we did have a few chances in this game as well, but they were just going wide over the bar, scuff shots. So it was a very frustrating first half. And the second half, we did come out fighting. The first 20 minutes or so, we did have a lot of possession, and we were, getting a lot of balls in the box, and we were putting a lot of pressure on their box. But once again, no real clear-cut chances until the last 10 minutes. But then we sprang into life in the last 10 minutes. Andoni made subs, as he does. He tinkered the team, and he put a centre-back, Dean Howson, up front. He put Lewis Cook in the back, and he brought on James Hill, who's usually a centre-back, and put him in midfield for the last 10 minutes. And it worked. Two of our subs combined, Dango Atara and Enes Unal, who's been frustrating a lot of Bournemouth fans lately. We signed him for big money in the summer. He was on loan last year, and at the moment he's been more of a bit player. He's an impact player. He's a very tall centre forward, frustrating a lot of the Bournemouth fans at the moment. But he came up with the goods. He sort of bundled the ball in to get it back to 1-1, and we were like, how have we got away with this? How have we managed to snatch a point? We've been poor today. But then after that, Ipswich just panicked. They sat deeper and deeper. They were trying to waste time, and we got that another chance. Philip Billing, another sub, another sort of a bit player this season. He made a good impact as well. Crossed it in for Utara, who scored to make it 2-1. And absolute scenes in the away end again. It's always so. We're in such a good place as Bournemouth fans at the moment, where it's just complete harmony in the club at the moment. We've got a good squad. We've got a manager who we absolutely love, and we love the style of football. It's so exciting. I mean, sometimes it doesn't always come out with positive results. We lost to Brighton and Brentford, but it's always exciting. We never give up. We have a never say die attitude. And, once again, it was similar in the Everton game, where we scored 3 goals in the last 5 minutes to beat them at Goodison Park, where we don't give up. We know we're going to get that chance, and we took it today. And I do feel for Ipswich. As I said, they battled hard. They haven't won at home this season. I think their fans, it got to the 80th minute, their fans started getting loud. They thought they'd done it, and then suddenly the 2 goals, and complete disaster for Ipswich. And I do feel for them, and I do really hope they survive. But in terms of our performances, where we are as a club, we're 1 point off 5th, and I think we're 3 points off 4th, where there's a cluster of teams in that high middle section of the Premier League who on similar points. And our next game is West Ham next Monday. So the sky's the limit. What can we achieve? Can we achieve Europe? It seems like a dream. Who would have thought that 10 years ago that we'd be discussing Europe? But the way we're playing, the backing that we've got with Bill Foley, our chairman, and the manager we've got, the sky really seems the limit. And once again, another memorable away game for the Cherries. So we try and forget about the disappointing 80 minutes and focus on that last 10 minutes. Now, never say die attitude. So I couldn't be any happier as a Bournemouth fan. So roll on Monday and West Ham, and who knows where we'll be after that game. We could even be a few points off fourth.
Thanks to Cole. It is Colin and Big Tell's AFCB Matchday Vlogs. It's probably easier to use the link in the description below. 2 points there. First of all, he wasn't having a dig at Leicester, but when we played them, we beat them, but we were bloody lucky, and B, we had Cooper. So I completely get what he's saying.
I didn't disagree with a word he said on that.
No. And you've also got the point that Ipswich now know how it feels, because Ipswich did this so often to teams last season. A number of times I'm thinking, oh yeah, we've broken away, that they're a goal down. It's 89th minute, and you turn back and they've won 2-1 or something stupid like that. It was awful for those first 80 minutes, but again, you've got to blame Ipswich for not capitalising. And we've said this a lot about Leicester. 1-0, you can't go 1-0 up and then sit back and play out for the win. You've got to really go for that second. And look what happened to Ipswich.
Well, exactly, yeah. They remind me of the Leicester team we had in 2002, 2003 under Mickey Adams that got promoted. Remember, we were like leading games, and then we were, in the last 10 minutes, we gave away something like 30-odd points in the season just by giving away late goals. And we ended up getting relegated. Yeah. This is a heavy defeat for Ipswich, a very heavy defeat. And you could feel it in the stadium at the end, because the energy deflated after this, all the effort, all the work, they've been the best promoted team to play on the pitch, and they've always put in a good effort. It's all gone now because it's all been taken away because Bournemouth put on another superb performance at the end there. And like you say, Chris, I saw in the game, Ipswich should have gone 2 or 3 up at certain points in this, and you can't miss these chances like you can in the Championship. We sound like broken records. Leicester have had to learn this the hard way, as many other clubs have over the years that have come up from the Championship. You could not miss these chances. Ipswich and Southampton have got the same problem, and they've kind of outed themselves this week in that they've got a lot of huff, a lot of puff, a lot of positivity, a lot of backing, but they just haven't got the quality, and that is where we're kind of at this point. So yeah, it's a difficult one for Ipswich, this. But Bournemouth, what can you say? Honestly, they need to view this like when we won the Premier League. Just keep your heads down, game by game, enjoy it, love it. Don't put any pressure on it. And honestly, they will probably be in Europe if they do that.
I remember that they actually thanked me, a lot of the Bournemouth fans, because we went on and won the league that season. Because I came down, and everybody knows the story. I've said it often enough about where Bournemouth were in the bad place. But they'd got promoted, and they would have been the story of that season, and they would have had all the attention, having been minus 17, literally a nod away from going out of business. Collecting money, players collecting money outside the pavilion, to being in the Premier League. That would have been the story. But because everybody was talking about Leicester, every newspaper, literally around the world, they kind of just got on with it.
Yeah, for the modern day equivalent, if there's any modern day football fans who are watching who are a bit younger, what Bournemouth have done would be like Swindon Town right now in this moment, who are bottom of League Two, looking at the trapdoor and looking at complete extinction, ending up in the Premier League fighting for Europe after a 10-year spell.
Yes.
It's remarkable the story Bournemouth have had, and I'm actually glad we're getting to experience this as neutrals, watching this and going, we thought the story might be they might just make the Premier League. The story hasn't finished yet, and that's the beautiful thing about it.
And when they went down, they came back up again. And I love to see, like Luton last season. I don't care who it is at the moment, whether it's and no disrespect to Forest. I know they've had big times in the past, if Tom is still in, but at the moment you're not a huge club. You're in that same band as ourselves, and and what have you. But I
Brighton,
love to see, I love to see Forest up there, Brighton up there, Bournemouth, Brentford, Fulham. And that's brilliant. We should have teams like that in the Premier League. But I've just realised I actually hadn't given myself a point for that game because I went, as it happened, 3-1 to
Oh,
Bournemouth.
you did. Oh, so you
Yeah.
got 3 points. You beat me and Brad.
Yeah, well, I got 4 actually. I don't want to rub it in, but I got
All right. I'm still in third place on the podium. It's not a problem.
podium of 3. Yes. You went 2-2 for that one. But having said that, in fairness, Brad went 1-1. So, whoops a daisy.
Yeah. I think these games are so hard to predict. You could literally throw a dart at a few scores of 1-1, 2-1, 2-1. And then you could be Chris and just get lucky every week. But
Well, none of us got an exact score.
No.
And I'll tell you what score we didn't get right, and I don't think anybody will have got this right. Spurs 3, Chelsea 4. All I can say to that is, wow.
All I can say to that is I predicted 0-0, thinking it'll be Sod's Law, the most attacking team in the Premier League with the highest line, versus another attacking team with the highest line. Will probably neutralise each other. I was an idiot.
Can I just say, you went 0-0. In fairness to Brad, went 2-2. I went 2-1 to Chelsea. I mean, even I was miles off, but at least I got the point. 0-0. I mean, if you're going to be wrong, Tom, be wrong big time.
I mean, I tell you what, Chris, honestly, my answer to this is it was a cultural problem with being British. And that is that fundamental core of every British person underneath you, which is there is something called Sod's Law. And I literally went, it's Sod's Law of any game to be 0-0 this season. It'll be the one where it shoved the most goals possible. So I got calmed. I should have believed in reality. And, what a game. I mean, I tell you what, Tottenham. I kind of get to a point with Tottenham where I go, I think they've got the loveliest facilities in the world and they're kind of mollycoddled by it because they don't seem to be fully invested in wanting to work to have that standard, around them.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they want all the big club respect and love and adoration. And then I just look at this and go, Chelsea had a left back who started with the wrong football boots on in this game and you were 2-0 up. And you still lose 4-3 at home.
Yes.
It's shocking, Chris. It's shocking. Anyway, over to you, but it's shocking. I think it's a shocking
I was
result.
just laughing. I was just laughing because I was watching Match of the Day 2 last night and I saw that about Cucurella and the boots. It was like, seriously? And I don't think it made a lot of difference. I just think it was like, I'm fed up with these.
If I was a Tottenham fan, I'd be embarrassed it did make such a difference because they literally, Chelsea gave them a 2-0 head start because their left back had Crocs on when he should be playing football. And, I kept falling over and they still come back.
But it was the Chelsea defender, wasn't it, that slipped because he got the wrong boots on. Yeah. I mean, again, I say you went 0-0, I went 2-1. Spurs remind me a little bit like a poor man's Man United. Because they seem to think all they've got to do is change the manager and suddenly it will everything in the garden will smell of roses. And it seems to be, obviously there's more problems than just the manager. There's more problems. Because that team that they've got and that manager that they've got should really be winning things, shouldn't they? And, they've got through a lot of managers. All right, we know Forest manager was there for a bit and that didn't work out. But when you look at them and Man United, though, structurally and as a team, you've got to think the Spurs are in the better position off field.
You do.
But is this stadium, and let's be honest with you, yes, from above it looks like a toilet bowl, but it's a lovely modern stadium, and I know the old stadiums. There's something about them, but I do like the modern stadiums where you don't, stand for 90 minutes in a puddle of piss. Are they? Do you think how Arsenal were when they first moved to the Emirates? That the big stadium, the money's tight because they're paying off for this stadium, or do you think it goes deeper than even that?
I'm going to say it goes deeper than that, and I think this applies not only to Tottenham but also to Manchester United a little bit, which we'll get to when we get to that game. But bear in mind, they've made a manager change and also lost this week. I think it's very applicable for both.
Yeah.
There are two football clubs that, in some ways, have a similar problem we had at Leicester at one time, which was when we end up getting relegated to League One. The culture of the football club at Leicester then was so toxic and so unbecoming of what we were meant to be as an ideal, as a community, that we got punished for it, and rightly so. It took Nigel Pearson to come in and tear the walls down with what he was seeing in personnel, their attitudes, how they applied themselves. And luckily for us, it did the job. And now, all these years later, that still has a positive effect. It's the opposite for these two clubs. They've replaced managers like there's no tomorrow. They've made player signings like there's no tomorrow. Every player is mollycoddled. Every player's got fantastic training facilities. Every player's got fantastic contracts. Not one of them's earned it. One of them's earned it. I'm sorry. You've got to be brutal at this point. I think these two clubs can change whatever manager they want, because I think Ange's a good manager. I think Amarin's a good manager. They have been in other places. I think there is a toxic core of these clubs. If I was the owners, I would be ripping paper off the walls about.
I mean, changing the manager look, it worked for Chelsea, didn't it? Every time they changed the manager, they won the league again, So it can work. And obviously, we say, like the likes of at the other end of the table, changing your manager can keep you up and get you out of trouble. But like you say, it has to go deeper with these two clubs. But talking about the red half of Manchester, I found myself in a very weird position here. Very weird, because I was actually sat next to a Man United fan. My daughters had come back from London, both of them, twin daughters I've got, as you know, and they came back from London for the weekend. And we hadn't got a match on Saturday, and I got invited round for a bit of a meal and everything. All the family got getting together. And so I went round, and my brother-in-law is a Manchester United fan. And I was torn because I'd gone 2-2 for my prediction for this. You went 1-0 Man United. And I would have loved Man United to have got that third goal, so I got a point. But it didn't happen, and I have to say, the fact that Forest beat them, my brother-in-law said to me, he said, he's called Manny, he's from Hong Kong, and he said, why? Of course, he's from Hong Kong, he's a Man United fan.
Only Chuck Boy, he's from London, so he's a Manchester United fan.
Yes. Oh, no, I didn't realise what I was going to say then. But the fact that he said to me, like, why are you happy? It's Nottingham Forest. You hate them. And I went, I hate Man United more. And he knows I don't like Man United, And I said, the fact that they've beaten you. And I've got to say, look, fair play to Forest. They beat Liverpool. They're the only team to beat Liverpool this season. They are up to fifth. They are in the Europa League group stage at the moment as things stand, obviously depending how our teams get on in Europe. So fair play, 100% fair play to them. Like when they beat us, fully deserved it. And everything, oh God, we should be able to beat Forest. Well, no, we shouldn't, because they're higher than Brighton. They could have gone fifth when they beat us. They are now fifth, 25 points. Only 2 points off a Champions League position, for God's sake. Fair play to them. Yes, it hurts me a little bit to say that, but look, taking the blue tinted glasses off, well done to Forest. And again, I like to see these other teams smash that top six, click.
Yeah, you've got it, Chris. I mean, it's interesting because we could be viewed as not liking Nottingham Forest, but I think there's something humanity dislikes more than individual sort of specific dislike.
Yeah.
And that is, we dislike an ideal of being told this team's the best and we're going to have to accept it. And I think that's kind of why all of us kind of had a bit of a chuckle to ourselves, because we're no different than Forest, really. We're similar clubs with similar backgrounds, and we both like to take a chunk out of the big boys now and again.
Yeah.
I felt Manchester United in this one, with my prediction, I felt it was a good chance for them to show what Ruud has shown at Leicester so far, a bit more resilience against a team that, they've played very well, like you said, Chris, but they've actually not had a decent result for a couple of weeks particularly. They've done well, but they've not looked as good as they possibly had till this point. and then they go and step up again, which is a very, very, a lot amount of credit to go to them and to Nuno. They thoroughly deserved it. In some ways, I think credit to Nuno, because the week before, I think he needed to give him a bit of a kick. And I think if you're going to go out and then respond to that, to do it in the way they did at Old Trafford, where at times Manchester United were under constant pressure at the back and had no chance to breathe, I think more credit to them and more power to them. I think if more teams played like that, we'd all have more of a shot against the bigger boys.
Yes. I've got to say, Michael E., traitor wearing our enemy-coloured shirt. Seriously, mate? Get over yourself, please. Look, it is a Leicester shirt. Look, can you see that there? I don't know if you can see that, Alvo, Leicester badge.
I quite liked the Leicester red shirt. I quite liked it.
Yeah. Gary Lineker wore this, I believe, or he wore a red shirt. Look, I've got the home shirt and I've also got the away shirt. So I actually have put twice as much money into the club. And I bought this recently because obviously that they redo them. So all I've got to say, Michael, is get over yourself. Go and wobble your head. You know what I mean?
And actually, there's a lot of fans who were actually calling for a red away kit recently to be different because we hadn't had one for a while. There was.
No, indeed.
Yeah.
Like I say, we had a white. It was white for ages.
Yeah.
And then people said, well, you say that's Leeds United. Well, why are you wearing blue? Blue's Chelsea. We hate Chelsea now. I mean, come on, whether he's saying that tongue in cheek or not, possibly, and I know where he's coming from, but yeah. Now then, this was as close as you came to getting 3 points, and you were very close to getting 3 points. What a game! Brentford 4, Newcastle 2, and this is the 6th game we're looking at, and normally it would be a lot higher if it hadn't been for the other results, but. Brentford, look, they demolished us. They got beat, I think, last time out. Yes, they did, not sure who to. And then obviously they've come and beaten Newcastle, who aren't as good away as they are at home. And Newcastle are sitting down in 12th place. I have to say, fair play to Newcastle fans. I want to talk about Newcastle first. Fair play to them. Because I thought there'd be a lot of them saying "how out," you know, and maybe it was expected that they would be doing better now. Your thoughts on Newcastle?
Well, they didn't play badly again, like they haven't done any week, but they just seem to be in a position now, Chris, where they're not picking up results. And I've got a few things that I will question. And number one's going to be Isaac, their striker. He's a man that's constantly linked in the press with 75+ million pound moves to big Premier League clubs. And he pretty much missed an open goal in this game because he was taking his time to put the ball in the back of the net. He looked a bit slack. I've questioned his attitude at times. And he's leading a line in a team that wants to be in the Champions League. And he's talked about as the big striker of that club. And I don't think he's delivering. So I can see where Newcastle fans are coming from. I think the system's fine. They created chances. Brentford are insane in how they play. They play like a basketball team. They're going to punt it up long. Their midfield are going to be part of the attack, and you're going to be under pressure. Every team's going to face exactly the same as that, especially at Brentford. But Newcastle are creating chances. They're just not taking them. And I think then you've got to question the players more than the manager.
Brentford, on home form only, are top of the league.
Yeah, they've only dropped, was it 2 points at home or something?
Yeah,
I mean,
they're unbeaten. They haven't lost at home. And look, we know how good they are because we had to play them at home recently. And let's be honest with you, they put us to the sword, didn't they? They sat in 9th. Look, I think that probably, they're obviously very happy. And I spoke to a Brentford fan, Mr. B, Steve, not so long ago. He obviously got called Mr. B. That's the thing. That's his channel name. But they're very well. He said he's very happy with how things are, and I think as a Brentford fan, you would be. But if take off again the red tinted spectacles, they've won 7, but they've lost 6.
Yeah,
the 23 points. So they're only 2 points off the Europa League place where Nottingham Forest are. But obviously, they're a long way off Chelsea and a long way off Liverpool. But Could they make it into Europe?
They can, but the way you worded your question, Chris, was very, very good, because you've hinted at what I was going to say, and you're right. Ultimately, they still got to sort their defence out a bit, because
Yeah.
they win games 4-1, 4-2, 4-3, but they're still conceding these, and eventually, you'll fall on the wrong side of these with VAR decisions as well if you're not careful. So they do still need to continue to improve. I faced Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank will do it, because he's been there now an incredible long time, nearly a decade, isn't it? Building them up from the lower leagues, and I just think he's a remarkable manager who seems to evolve with the times, and he's very good at playing his players in a way that makes them look $1 million as well. I came out of this game looking at Mbeumo and going, if I was Liverpool, I lost Salah, I might go for this guy, because he picks up the ball and no one really talks about him, but he's so good with it, and he always puts it in the back of the net, and he reminds me a bit of Salah, oddly, which is a funny thing to say perhaps because it's a weird comparison, but there was a bit of that. So yeah, I think Brentford, they can still focus on doing better, but obviously goal scoring is not a concern in the slightest the way they play.
No. Interesting what you said, though. Goal scoring isn't a problem. They've scored more goals than any other team apart from Tottenham. They both scored 31 goals. Thing is, Tottenham have only conceded 19. Brentford have conceded 28.
Yeah. And this is it, isn't it? I mean, these are two teams that play a high line, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
So you'd argue, I mean, Ange said it, excuse me, so let's go back to that game too much. Ange said it in the post-match when Romero went off injured. That really changed the game for his Spurs team. And maybe in a similar way to Brentford, when you're playing a high line, you need a certain type of defender that's harder to find. So if they haven't got that, then maybe we'll continue to leak goals. Perhaps that's something they need to focus on in January. If they sign a random defender from nowhere who's like, we've never heard of him, I'd be quite concerned.
Yes, yeah, no, you're right. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to see them in Europe. Nothing wrong with teams like that getting into Europe. But as I say, you went 3-2 with that one. I went 2-1. Brad went 2-0. Next up, another team, and they'll be looking at this and going, "Yeah, thanks very much. That was a point gained."
Yeah, it's an interesting game, this, Chris, because none of us predicted a 2-2, but actually a 2-2 was probably the most likely scenario, ironically, when you remove emotion from it. Crystal Palace on a bit of a run, playing well and looking like they're going to, maybe frighten a couple of teams as they're getting a bit more of a foothold in their game and getting players like Eze back as well, which is very important for them.
Yeah.
And then Man City, obviously a bit rocky under the ground, but still showing a good fight. I mean, the thing is, Man City are still behind their manager. I mean, there's no question about that. When you watch this game, on another day, I still think they should have won this and probably would have won this game. But because of the moment we're in and the piece of history where they're not having a good run, it's highlighted more that Crystal Palace get a point from this, right?
Yes.
But I would say overall, a point is probably the fair result. I think if Lewis hadn't got sent off, and I think he was daft, and Pep defended him in the post-match and said it's because it's Rico, and I would say, yeah, well, Rico needs to stop being Rico, because if he's mouthing off at the ref, he's getting yellow cards for no reason, which lead to reds, and has cost his team probably 2 points today.
Yes. At one point, when we were again 1-2 goals down, Palace had moved above us.
Yeah, because they took the ball to the horns, didn't they? And they started off really well, and they found some nice space. I mean, Hughes had a great game for them. Will Hughes, he's one of the most sort of underrated midfielders possibly in the Premier League. He came in and his range of passing was something that Man City could have done with on the day, ironically. So well done to him, because he made such a positive effort to the game. It's worth noting. And also, on the opposite side, Man City's problem, it seems to be that lack of quality. I mentioned Kyle Walker earlier. He seems to be slightly past it now. He's not holding his physicality as well. He's not holding the pace linked with that as well. And then you've also got people like Lewis, who's a bit of a hothead and not really chilling his bones and leaving a bit too much space. And then Savinho's not Mahrez. Mahrez, with the chances that Savinho had, would have scored 2 goals in this game.
Yes, yeah. Down to our last game. I'm just going to have a look and just see. The game has kicked off tonight. I think it's still 0-0. Yes, it is. 17 minutes gone. It's still 0-0. But the last game, which was...
I was going to say quickly, in good news, I predicted 2-1 to Wolves, so that's to get your money on West Ham.
I've gone 1-1, so who
Yeah.
knows?
It's
And
hard to know
Bradford,
with the Antonio incident, isn't it? Because West Ham
yeah.
might really rally tonight in a home game, so it's a very
Well,
hard one. This
as silly as it sounds, not silly, but yes, it is the sort of thing that does rally
it
a
does. It
team.
unites people, understandably. Yeah.
Yeah. Arsenal getting out of jail again. 2 points thrown
Mm.
away for them, though.
Well, I said the last 2 weeks where we talked about Arsenal, it's like talk to me next week and see if they do it again after going back-to-back wins. And here we are back at square one, aren't we?
Yes.
The goal for Fulham was superb, and I think Jimenez needs a lot of credit here because his movement off the ball got him that goal because he went the right side of the player and actually got inside and then finished it. Decisive. You can't allow Fulham to do that. Arsenal huffed and puffed as they have done for a good 90 minutes. They had a goal disallowed for offside at the end that was in the world we would like to probably live in. It was pretty much dead on, but his arm was slightly over, and it's like, wow, I think we should favour the attacker in football, as I'm sure a lot of people do. But
Yeah.
it shouldn't be down to elbows. But ultimately, they huffed and puffed, and Fulham held up a really good response to that, Chris. So consequently, they didn't get the 3 points. And this is Arsenal's problem. And they've got this kind of weird invisible ceiling they keep hitting and they can't get past. And I don't know quite how they do it, but they need to do something because they want to win the Premier League. But quite frankly, right now, they're not going to do it.
No. Looking at the table, I mean, look, you got Fulham in 10th, Brentford in 9th, Bournemouth in 8th, Brighton in 7th, Forest in 5th. I mean, you'd almost look at that if you're like, taking out the top four. You'd almost look at that and go, "Is the table upside down?"
But that's brilliant. I mean, ultimately, Chris,
It
it's
is
meant to be
great.
a sport, Like I get so annoyed by money dominating football because I'm like, I want
Yes.
it to be a league where every year anyone can win. It's why I like
Yeah,
the NHL so much nowadays because every year there's 32 teams. You don't actually know who's going to win it.
yeah. So
It's a beautiful.
indeed, it is. I'm not going to embarrass you because I went for an Arsenal win. You went for an Arsenal win. But I would just like to point out Brad's prediction.
Draw.
No, he went for an Arsenal win, but he went 5-0 to Arsenal.
Oh,
You know what I said about if you're going to be wrong, be wrong big time. There's
yeah,
big
yeah.
time for you. There's big
That's my
time.
Chelsea Tottenham for Brad. We'll let him have that one.
Right, here we go. So I want to just very quickly, and this isn't going to happen, but I want to very quickly talk about the Merseyside derby. Look, they've got a fantastic stadium that Everton are going to be moving into, and I think depending how their season pans out, we could be seeing a new manager come in the new year to take them to that next level. Because I don't think Sean Dyche is the manager to take them. I know he took Burnley into Europe, but I can't see him doing anything other than ever just keeping Everton,
No,
up.
they are.
Now, I want to have a look at Everton's fixtures because, and there's thoughts in my madness here. Just bear with me because they're down in 15th at the moment. Matches, here we go. Right, so their last game of the season is away. Oh my God, they've got the last 5 games. Here we go. The last 5 games is away at Liverpool, home to Arsenal, away to Nottingham Forest, home to Man City, and their last game is away at Chelsea. Wow, what an end that is. Now, I would love the FA to have a word with Chelsea and go, do you fancy playing midweek? And then on that last game of the season, making that this game.
Yeah, I tell you what, I saw where you were going there with that, and they won't do it because can you imagine what would happen to Liverpool as a city if Liverpool won the title and relegated Liverpool Everton at the same time?
Yeah,
There was a famous Stanley Cup final in Vancouver in the 90s where they were playing Boston in the Game 7, and Vancouver never made the playoff final, Chris. Got to Game 7. They obviously lost to Boston. Yeah, there was a full-on city riot, mate, with hundreds of people. There was cars being flipped up. Honestly, you can watch documentaries on it. The fans lost it so much there was a riot in the city. So I like your idea, but my notion with mentioning that is I could see this being exactly the same if they moved it to the last game of the season.
I mean, obviously Everton and Liverpool fans have a bond that other Derby fans, as in, Derby game fans, don't.
Yeah.
They if you're an Everton fan and you find yourself in the Liverpool end, you're not going to be in any trouble. But it would just be a nice gesture, wouldn't it? Because this was
I tell
the
you what.
last Merseyside derby at Goodison Park.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's interesting those fixtures, like you say, though. My word. I mean, you remember 2 years ago we got relegated, and on the last day we were hoping for Everton to slip up, and we knew it probably wasn't going to happen. If
Bournemouth
Everton,
let us down, as I keep reminding the
they
Bournemouth fan.
They
Yes.
did, yeah, which was such a shame because it was looking so good at half time. But ultimately,
Yeah.
we didn't deserve it. I mean, I'm more than happy 2 years later to go. We didn't deserve it. So,
No,
but this
you don't.
time,
One game doesn't get you relegated, does it?
no, it doesn't. Over the course of the season, we weren't good enough. You got to own it, otherwise you don't have a chance of getting up properly.
Yes.
Maybe Leeds United should be a bit more humble. They might get somewhere. Well, that's a shot I thought the game. That's right.
It's a good
Well, it's
point.
fair enough, isn't it? If you're going to think you're too entitled to be in the championship, maybe you should work harder to get out of it. But my point is that going into this, Everton would have 4 fixtures at the end of the season, which they're going to have no hope. So that is an interesting thing they're going to have to consider, like you say. But of course, Chris, all their money is tied up in this stadium. They could be like us; they could get relegated because of a new stadium.
Yes, and have the best stadium in the second tier.
Exactly, because our stadium, while we needed to do it, it actually came at the worst financial time possible because of ITV Digital and all the rest of it.
Yes,
It ruined us.
yes.
It ruined us.
It did. You could argue that Peter Taylor had something to do with that as well. No, that wasn't Peter Taylor, was it? Yes, it was.
Yeah, they did. Peter Taylor led into it.
Yeah, as well. Never mind. Right, how I have to ask you this, Tom. How are your tits and ass?
I think they're ready to go as usual, Chris. Whenever they're ready to be called upon, I'll get them out.
Well, let's quickly look at the table because there it stands. Look, if that's how it finishes at the start of May next year, we'll be happy.
Yeah, take it. End the season now. Let's end all the stress, Chris. We'll take, a nice 16th place finish, a nice summer to rebuild, and then we'll focus on European football qualification for the next season.
I'm just going to have a look and see which 3 teams I had predicted to finish bottom.
Yeah, I need to look at this because I think today we've probably decided it's going to be Southampton, Ipswich, and Everton.
Yes. I had actually got, I am sorry, Forest fans, I had you down in 20th.
Yeah, I think I had Forest in 18th, ironically. I can't find mine, but I think I did.
I mean, it shows why I'm not doing very well in the prediction league. In fairness, though, Rob Tanner, who is the Leicester correspondent for the Athletics and knows his stuff, had Forest in 18th. In 19th, I had Southampton. Rob had Southampton bottom, so he knows what he's talking about there. And the last 3rd team to go down was Wolves, which surprised a lot of people. But I don't rate Gary O'Neill, and I didn't at the start of the season rate Nuno, which is why I'd put Forest bottom. But like you say, it's nice to be proved wrong. Before we get to your tits and ass, I just want to ask one more thing.
Yeah.
Could Chelsea possibly win it this season?
Do you know what, Chris? It's so funny. When I saw the odds who could win the Premier League at the start of this season, I think Chelsea were 12-1, and I thought to myself, cool, if Enzo gets off to a good start, that's a very good price for that. Yeah, it's interesting you lead on to that. Actually, you can imagine what one of my nominations might be this week and similar to last week because Chelsea are quite. It's funny because the interesting thing about the Premier League is there's 1 or 2 clubs that will always be slightly there but hovering behind the noise. Bournemouth's one of them. Chelsea's one of them. For some reason, people look at Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest more, but these clubs are quietly doing things. So yeah, I think you're right. I don't think it's as mad as people might think actually.
I mean, Liverpool. Yeah, the Nottingham Forest game was not saying Forest didn't deserve it, but you wouldn't have put any money on that. And they've only drawn 2 in fairness, but you could then argue that they've still got their bad patch to come. So, I don't think it's necessarily out the realms of possibility. I have to say, now that I've got over, Enzo leaving, and I think, once that had all settled down, you understand why, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Good luck to them. Good luck to them.
I've got no problem with Enzo. He served his purpose, so that's fine.
Right, so we're on to Toms T.I.T.A.S. and Ass Awards. If nobody knows or hasn't seen this before, it's Tom's Impactful Trophy, which is the tit, and yay, there we go. I'd like to say his ass is bigger, but I don't know if I've seen it at all.
Not the size that counts; it's the quality.
Yes, it is. And your ass of the week, because obviously that sums it all up, doesn't it?
I've done nominations for both this week, Chris, to keep you happy. So we've got 3 nominations for both.
Oh, right. Well, we'll start with tits. And there we go, you with your crown on. Who are you putting forward for your impactful trophy this week?
Right, so this week, guys, we have 3 nominations, which we will talk about. So, number 1, I hinted at it briefly mere seconds earlier, Enzo Maresca, 2nd week in a row for a nomination. Because once again, Chelsea are looking the real deal. And I nearly gave it to Jadon Sancho, because Jadon Sancho had a spectacular game for a guy that I felt was remarkably lazy. And I wondered why Chelsea had signed him. And actually, he put in a real shift and made a real positive effect on that game. Was probably their best player.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a side nod to him. But the first nomination is Enzo. The second one is going to be Brentford's Mr. Mbeumo, because once again, he has been absolutely storming the line for him. He's scored an incredible amount of goals. He's up there with the top 6 forwards in the Premier League. And without him, they wouldn't be even sniffing where they were because of the goals they conceded, right? So major credit to him. And like I say, I saw Salah vibes of him this week. I thought he was superb.
Yeah.
And the third choice, well, we talked about it today, but we talked about it a day ago, 24 hours ago, Mr. Jamie Vardy. Got to be Jamie Vardy on the list. Because ultimately, here's the thing, right? It's a difficult one because it's a Leicester fan channel. People go, well, it's a Leicester-based decision, right?
Yeah.
But we know what Leicester City we want to see and the Leicester City we haven't been seeing. Yeah. And we see Jamie Vardy turn up with basically all the greatest hits, like he was U2, and literally doing everything like we've known and loved for 10 years. And yeah, so that is the nice thing about it. So Jamie Vardy's the third one. My internet's getting a bit dodgy there. My apologies, mate. It's been a dodgy weekend.
Oh, no, I can't see anything at this end at all.
Good, that's good. But anyway, those are the 3 nominations. What do you think?
Right. 3 very good nominations. I when you said Enzo, I thought, yes, I could understand why, and I would probably not disagree with that. Then you went, and I can't say his name, but the guy at Brentford I love. I mean, everybody thought they'd lost Tony and they were going to struggle. Well, teams aren't, football clubs aren't just about one player. But if any club is about one player, God, it's Jamie Vardy. He's, again, if I can't say this often enough, if you don't subscribe to The Athletic, do so. There's offers on all the time. You can read as much shit as you want in the tabloids and rumours and all that. Rob Tanner, who is the Leicester correspondent, and it's not just him that writes for Leicester. There's other correspondents as well. They are owned by the New York Times, which is why if you ever see me putting a link up, you'll see it says.
Did you see that flash? That was my power going off.
Oh, I didn't see it. No.
Oh, we might have got away with that. It literally flickered on and off. We'll go back and we'll be able to clip that. But anyway, carry on, Chris. Sorry.
No, I didn't see your flash at all, which is probably a good thing. But yeah, so if you ever see a link that says NY Times, that is The Athletic. They write very, very well, and he has got a good. I'm just trying to bring it up here.
To say The Athletic's a very good website.
Yeah.
I read a lot about the Maple Leafs on there. They do some very good writing about all sports.
Jamie Vardy, age 37 and 11 months, scoring goals, setting records, saving Leicester City. When Leicester City are in a hole and need digging out, there's only one man who always grabs the shovel, Jamie Vardy. And I've done it here. I get a play on Ghostbusters. Who are you going to call? Jamie Vardy. And exactly. For that reason, and obviously I'm a Leicester fan as well, but for that reason, I am giving the tit. I would give it this week to Mr. Jamie Vardy. But I understand why the other 2 are there as well.
You're in agreement, Chris. Jamie Vardy wins.
Hey, go, Jamie, go.
And I know we'll be called biased, but ultimately, where we have been as a football club recently, and the lovely thing was reading comments from other fans about it and saying, look, Jamie Vardy is the GOAT. He is unbelievable. And seeing positive mentions from fans going, this reminds me of the Leicester of old. I
Yeah.
loved reading stuff like that. And the fact that that brings other people in. So it's actually a bigger award than just us, guys. But it is this week for Jamie Vardy.
Nearly 38, and you score one and set one up.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? You know, I mean, and the guy just ran himself into the ground.
Yes. Now let's get your phallic symbol up. Tom's Ass Award. Tom's Ass of the Week award.
Yeah.
Who have you nominated to be a donkey this week?
We got 3 nominations, Chris, and like I always say with this isn't to really beat people up. It's to try and encourage them to try and do better next week.
It's a bit of fun at the end of the day.
Exactly. Excuse me there. The first one's got to be Mark Cucurella.
Yeah.
Because obviously, when you are about to go and drive a Formula One car, if you're an F1 driver, if you end up crashing at turn 1 and getting out of the car and going, crap, I didn't put my boots on, I was wearing Crocs, you might be in a bit of trouble. And I'm sorry, you're a professional footballer, my friend. You put your team 2-0 down to Tottenham entirely on your own because you were wearing the wrong footwear and falling over.
Yes.
Literally, that is exactly what happened. So he's
Yeah,
got to get a nomination. I mean,
Yeah.
you're meant to be a professional football, my friend. You play for Spain. I mean, you should know on wet pitches to have longer studs. But anyway, the second one is going to be for Rico Lewis and Man City for that red card, because at that time in the game, Palace had rocked Manchester City quite substantially, given them a few sucker punches. But like any boxing match, they were still favourites and they were still ready to knock them out of a knockout punch at any minute. And then Rico Lewis gets booked for mouthing off at the referee. And then the second tackle he makes is a little bit rough and ready. It's 50-50 if it was a foul from him, but it wouldn't have mattered if he hadn't got the first yellow card in the first place.
Yes.
So I think he's been a very silly boy. And actually, I think Pep's got to have a word with himself and say, I can defend my players publicly, yes, but behind the scenes, stop doing that because you're getting my team into major trouble. I'll maintain it cost them 2 points. The third nomination will be Isaac and Newcastle. I've got to lean on him now because Newcastle are hitting 2 or 3 games in a row where they're not scoring enough. They're getting in trouble. The fans are supporting the manager, but I'm looking at it and going, this is a case now of individuals not stepping up because Harvey Barnes seems to be scoring and certain other people seem to be scoring. And the guy they're creating the chances for, like they did in the Brentford game, isn't taking them anymore. And he's meant to be an elite striker. He brings that pressure on himself with the price tag as well, because ultimately I think they paid a lot of money for him and he needs to deliver. So those are the 3 nominations. Chris, what do you think?
Well, the Man City player, first of all, I have to say I haven't seen the game, so it's hard for me to comment on that. But, you know, allowing for the fact that you have a rush of blood or somebody's been winding you up all game, it happens, you know. And let's be honest with you, and like I say, I haven't seen the tackle or what happened or why he got sent off. You get a yellow card these days for kicking the ball away, and then you go and do something silly next, and you got another yellow card, and you're off.
Yeah.
Isaac for Newcastle, I very much see where you're coming from with that. But again, is he just having a bad game? You know, look at how many of these awards would Daka have got last season? You know, now the Chelsea one, and I listened to this on, I don't know if it was Match of the Day or one of the programs, and was saying, no football player goes out onto that pitch just before kickoff not having been on it for 20 odd minutes before warming up.
Yep.
And, you know, on that, you're running around. That's the time to think, oh, hang on, this is a little bit slippy.
And we know we wet the pitches.
Yes, indeed. And look, he went from studs to studs, I believe. So it wasn't just, you know, what's the other one that I don't know what the other one's called.
Blade, a bit called Blade. Yeah.
They went from studs to studs, just longer ones. So I have to say, for me, I would give it to Cucurella at Chelsea.
I think this is a hard one for me because I think they're all idiots in this occasion for different reasons. But I'm going to lean towards the experienced side, so we're going to immediately remove Lewis and give him the night off here, and say, learn from it, mate. Don't make a mistake again, because Man City can't afford you doing this every week.
Yes.
I'm going to lean towards Isaac, and it's controversial, but the reason why is because Chelsea managed to get around it and still get 3 points, irrelevant, and I think he's learned. Isaac, to me, is someone that reminds me a bit of.
You said Chelsea there, but wasn't it Newcastle?
No, I said Newcastle. Isaac's going to win this week, Chris. Yeah, Isaac's going to win. The reason why is because he doesn't do it enough. He reminds me of Gabriel Jesus at Arsenal, and Gabriel Jesus was signed at Arsenal to be a top striker, and it hasn't really worked out for them, and they've had to change their plans. Isaac only turns up 1 every 5 games for Newcastle, and at a time where they are facing questions for the first time, and I see a team working hard, and I see the manager still putting good application into it, and I see media noise about his future, and I think you're not really earning this media noise. So for me this week, Isaac, you need to step it up, mate, because Newcastle are struggling because you're not.
Fair enough. I will go with you. It is your reward, sir. And as always, thank you very much. I enjoyed this show.
My pleasure, man.
We will be having some time off in a couple of weeks because Christmas will all be throwing things into the spanner, and we're all doing different things for Christmas. Wednesday, the 18th of December, by the way, we're not having a staff Christmas party as such, but we're having a Christmas get-together. Literally, there'll be 8 of us in one chat. Good God, can you imagine? It'll be
Craig.
yeah.
Sorry, Craig. I know you're watching. We love you, mate.
And I have just because it's our Christmas show, I have just allocated everybody's elf name, so you will find out what that is.
Surely going to be Dopey, probably.
No, I didn't pick. They came up on the elf name generator. I think. Okay. I'm just hoping I didn't put porn name in there.
I was going to say my porn star name is something like Charlie Armstrong.
Oh, that's boring, isn't it?
I think it sounds quite good. I mean, that should be my alter ego, Charlie Armstrong. I think it sounds like it could be a dodgy.
What was your first pet called? Because that's supposed to be porn, isn't it?
Yeah, Charlie. Yeah.
Oh, Charlie was it? Oh,
yeah.
I'm going to say, did you have a dog called Armstrong? Armstrong, come here, hey boy.
Hey, let's not go into it.
No. I'm just sorry. I'm just thinking Charlie now.
I'm just worried my lights will start flashing you again, and we'll get the wrong message for the audio element of the podcast.
I will let you go. Thank you very much, sir, and I will see you this time next week, and we'll do it all again. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Chris. Cheers, mate. Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye. We'll let Tom go before he's taken out by the electricity. Charlie, I hope it's not the Charlie with the vodka. You know what I mean? Yeah, you do, don't you? Yeah. No, I can't go there. I don't know. I don't know who is watching. But you ever wondered where David Coote got his stuff from? Anyway, I'll tell you what, we will be there. He's going to kill me. Please like this video, share it, and subscribe. Really would appreciate it. And we will be back tomorrow night. And we are going to be talking Leicester City. It's the debate show, Chatting City. And we're going to be talking about Rude. What difference has Rude made to the team? That's the topic. I will see you tomorrow at 7. Thanks to Tom. Thanks to Colin from Bournemouth for doing that video for us. See you tomorrow night. Goodbye now.
Thank you for watching. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
That's all, folks.